The car sits at the edge of the road like a mistake no one bothered to erase. Paint dulled by years of sun. Windows clouded with a film that never quite clears. The seat sags in the middle, remembering a body that has spent too many nights folded into itself. Breath fogs the glass, slow and uneven, trapped in a space that smells of old fabric, cold metal, and waiting. There is very little light inside, just enough to show the cracks. The man inside does not sleep so much as drift. One eye opens, then closes again. A hand rests on his chest, as if counting something invisible. Time, maybe. Or losses. The engine is off. It has been off for hours. Silence presses down harder than noise ever could. Outside, people pass without looking. Inside, everything feels smaller with each breath. This is not a life being lived. It is a life being endured. His jacket is folded, not for comfort, but for habit. The kind of habit learned when there are no better options left. The dashboard light flickers once, then dies. The radio hasn't worked in years, but he still reaches for it sometimes, out of instinct, as if a voice might return if he keeps trying. Cold creeps in through the doors. Not dramatic cold. The slow, disrespectful kind. The kind that settles into bones and refuses to leave. His knees ache when he shifts. His back complains with a sharp, familiar pain. He exhales, long and tired, the sound of someone who has stopped expecting relief. Only later does the name surface. John Kani. Not announced, not celebrated, just remembered, like something people once knew by heart, and then misplaced. There was a time when his voice filled rooms, when silence waited for him to finish speaking before daring to exist again. There were stages, lights, scripts worn thin from rehearsal, applause that came in waves, respect that felt solid enough to stand on. That version of him feels impossibly far away now, like a story overheard through a wall. In this car, memory is both comfort and cruelty. Faces appear in the dark. Colleagues, audiences, strangers who once asked for photos, for autographs, for words that might mean something later. He wonders where those moments went. Not angrily, just quietly. As if asking the question too loudly might break what little balance he has left. The steering wheel is chipped where his hands rest. Fingertips trace the damage without thinking. Outside, a bus roars past, full of people going somewhere. Anywhere. He does not follow it with his eyes. Movement only reminds him of how still his world has become. He eats slowly when he eats at all. Food is functional now, not enjoyed. Water from a plastic bottle tastes faintly of rubber. He keeps the bottle anyway. Keeps everything. Letting go feels too final. Sometimes he speaks to no one. A sentence begins, then fades. The car absorbs it. The car keeps his secrets better than people ever did. No questions here, no pity. No need to explain how a man can give so much of himself to the world and still end up here, counting breaths in a parked vehicle. Night comes early. Or maybe it just feels that way. Streetlights blink on, one by one, indifferent. He pulls the jacket tighter, curls slightly inward, protecting what remains. The world beyond the windshield continues, as if nothing has gone wrong. Inside, a former life presses against the present, heavy and unresolved. The engine stays cold, the road stays quiet, and the car, patient and unforgiving, holds him exactly where he is. Only now does the truth surface, slowly, almost reluctantly. The man in the car is John Kani. The name lands heavier than expected. Not because it is unfamiliar, but because it feels out of place here. Wedged between a cracked steering wheel and a fogged windshield. The syllables carry echoes of places that look nothing like this roadside. Places with curtains, with light, with bodies leaning forward in their seats. There was a time when his world smelled of dust and makeup, not damp upholstery, when his feet stood on polished floors instead of rubber mats worn thin by years of use. Stages burned bright then. White light, hot light, so strong it erased everything beyond the edge of the scene. Out there, in the darkness, hundreds of faces waited, held their breath, trusted him to speak something true. That light does not reach the inside of this car. Back then, silence meant anticipation. Now it means absence. The kind that stretches, unchecked, until it becomes a weight. Applause once arrived in waves, loud enough to blur thought, loud enough to make a man believe, just for a moment, that being seen was the same as being protected. It wasn't. A theater seat cushions the body. This seat punishes it. Springs push back through fabric. Cold seeps up from the floor. His spine curves differently now, shaped by nights spent folding himself into a space never meant for rest. On stage, he commanded posture. Here, posture is a negotiation with pain. Cameras once found his face without effort. Now, mirrors are avoided. The glass reflects too much. Every line, every concession time has taken. The face that once carried stories for others now carries only fatigue. Fame taught him how to stand under lights. It never taught him how to disappear without being broken by it. There are no programs to hold, no scripts to return to. Just a glove compartment with old receipts and a pen that barely writes. His hands remember blocking, timing, gesture. They do not remember warmth. People talk about legacy as if it were shelter, as if past brilliance could insulate a man from the present, as if history ever paid rent. The truth sits here instead, breathing shallowly in a parked car, proving how little applause knows about survival. The contrast is merciless. Then, a room alive, every cough and shuffle tuned to his presence. Now, an empty stretch of asphalt that does not care who he once was. Then, lights rising on cue, heat on his skin, the hum of expectation. Now, a dashboard that won't light up, a heater that died quietly years ago. Then, hands clapping until they stung. Now, hands clasped together simply to keep still. There is no bitterness in him about it. That might be the most unsettling part. Just a calm, exhausted awareness. Glory did not follow him here. It did not argue on his behalf. It did not soften the night or quiet the ache in his joints. The world moved on, quickly, cleanly, as it always does. And here he remains, a man whose voice once carried across continents, now careful not to speak too loudly in case it reminds him of everything that no longer answers back. The car has learned his routine better than any house ever did. Nights are the hardest. Sleep comes in fragments, never whole. He dozes sitting upright, chin dipping forward, then snaps awake when pain shoots through his spine. The seatbelt presses into his ribs because he keeps it fastened, out of habit or maybe fear. There is no way to lie flat, no way to stretch. His body folds in on itself like something being stored rather than cared for. When he wakes in the dark, he doesn't check the time. Time stopped being useful a while ago. His back curves permanently now, shaped by hours of stillness in a space too small for dignity. Each movement is negotiated. Shift too fast, and his hip burns. Stay still too long, and his legs go numb. His hands tremble when he grips the steering wheel, not from cold alone, but from age catching up without mercy. There is no armrest that truly supports him, no pillow that belongs to him, only a jacket, rolled tight, pretending to be comfort. The smell inside the car never fully leaves. Damp fabric, old sweat, the faint, sour note of food eaten too slowly, too late. Moisture gathers in the corners where sunlight rarely reaches. He wipes the windows each morning with his sleeve, but the fog returns, stubborn, like everything else in his life now. Eating is an exercise in compromise. Crackers that crumble into his lap. Cold food because there's nowhere to warm it. He chews carefully, jaw aching, saving pieces for later because hunger is predictable, but resources are not. Crumbs collect in the seams of the seat. He brushes them away, embarrassed, even though no one is watching. The car is no longer transportation. It is shelter. It is bedroom. It is confession booth, the last place that did not turn him away. During the day, he parks where he can blend in. Not too close. Not too visible. He watches feet pass by through the lower edge of the windshield. Clean shoes, fast steps, lives in motion. His eyes follow them for a second too long, then look away. Being seen feels dangerous. Recognition would require explanation, and explanation costs energy he no longer has. Sometimes someone glances inside. Just a flicker of curiosity. His shoulders tense immediately. His gaze drops. He becomes smaller, quieter, willing himself to disappear into the upholstery. This is not fear of judgment. It is something heavier. The shame of being witnessed like this, reduced to a silhouette behind glass. His hands shake when he reaches for the bottle of water. Not violently. Just enough to remind him that his body is no longer reliable. He steadies himself by pressing his elbow into his thigh, a small trick learned through repetition. Age demands these negotiations constantly. And age, unlike fame, never forgets to collect. The cold returns in waves. It creeps in through the floor, climbs his legs, settles in his joints. He pulls the jacket tighter, but it only delays the inevitable. His breath grows shallow. Each inhale feels measured, cautious, as if air itself were something that might run out. This is where John Kani now exists, not framed by curtains, not held up by lights, but compressed into a driver's seat that never quite forgives him. The humiliation is quiet. No one points. No one laughs. That almost makes it worse. There is no moment of release, no explosion of cruelty, just the steady erosion of self. The understanding that this car, with all its discomfort, is the final line of defense between him and nothing at all. When night falls again, he prepares without ceremony, moves the jacket, adjusts the seat as far back as it will go, listens to the sounds of the city settling into homes he will never enter. His eyes close, not in peace, but in surrender to another fractured night. The car does not judge him. It does not rescue him either. It simply holds him, bent and breathing, as the world keeps moving past. The deepest wound is not the cold, not the hunger, not even the humiliation of sleeping upright in a place never meant for living. It is the silence around him. No one shouts him away. No one calls the police. No one tells him to move along. The absence of cruelty almost feels kind, until it becomes clear what it really is. Indifference. The kind that passes by without friction, without sound, without memory. And that raises a question no one seems willing to ask out loud. How does a man like John Kani end up here? There is no accusation in the question. Just wait. The heavy kind that settles when answers refuse to surface. The kind that lingers because it implicates everyone and no one at the same time. Cars slow at the light, then speed up again. Pedestrians glance, then look through him as if the glass were thicker than it is. No one knocks on the window. No one asks if he's all right. No one wonders how long he has been there. Recognition does not arrive. Concern never follows. He has learned the pattern. People notice the car first. Then they decide not to notice the man inside. That choice happens in a fraction of a second. A quiet decision made behind eyes that slide away. It leaves no mark, no trace, except here, inside him. Each passing hour confirms what the last one already suggested, that visibility is conditional, and worth is temporary. There is no outrage to fight against, no villain to name, just a wide, empty space where care might have existed. This is how neglect works. It doesn't push, it doesn't shout, it simply fails to arrive. He remembers being asked questions once, interviews, panels, conversations that stretched late into the night. People leaned in then, hungry for his thoughts, his voice, his presence. Now the world leans away, protecting itself from discomfort by pretending it hasn't seen anything at all. Even help, when it exists, stays abstract. Programs, systems, ideas discussed somewhere else, by someone else, for someone else. None of them stop here. None of them open the door and say his name. The silence becomes routine. Routine becomes expectation. Expectation hardens into truth. No one asks where he's going. No one asks where he's been. The man in the car becomes a fixed object in the landscape, like a broken sign everyone has learned to navigate around. Not dangerous enough to remove. Not valuable enough to restore. This quiet disregard carries its own kind of violence. It tells him, again and again, that survival is a private matter. That whatever brought him here is his alone to carry. That history, contribution, and voice have an expiration date. He sits very still when people pass. Stillness feels safer. Movement invites attention, and attention invites questions he cannot afford to answer. His eyes drop instinctively. Not out of guilt, but out of exhaustion. It takes effort to meet a gaze that might only reflect emptiness back. Society does not condemn him. It simply continues without him. And perhaps that is the cruelest sentence of all. Because silence offers no resistance, no clear injustice to push against. Only the slow realization that falling can happen quietly, politely, in full view, while everyone else keeps walking as if nothing essential has been lost. The hunger hurts, yes. The cold leaves its marks. But neither compares to what happens quietly inside him, where there is no insulation left. Pride was once something solid. It gave him posture. It shaped the way he entered a room. Now it sits in his chest like an extra weight, heavy and unhelpful, pressing down when he tries to breathe. It reminds him of who he was every time he fails to be that person again. Shame arrives first thing in the morning. It comes before pain, before hunger, before thought. It slips in the moment. His eyes open, and he remembers where he is. The seat, the glass, the stillness. He doesn't curse. He doesn't panic. He just closes his eyes for a second longer, as if delay might soften the truth. It never does. He blames himself in small, precise ways. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just a steady inventory of choices he no longer trusts. Stayed too long. Trusted too much. Asked too little. Said nothing when something should have been said. Each thought lands, then stacks neatly on top of the last, building a quiet monument to regret. What exhausts him most is not surviving. It's pretending that survival is enough. During the day, when someone passes too close or glances inside the car, he straightens slightly. Just a fraction. Enough to look fine. Enough to pass inspection in a world that only looks for visible disaster. This performance costs him more energy than hunger ever did. Holding himself together has become a full-time job with no pay and no rest. Inside, he is unraveling. He remembers things, but not clearly. Memories arrive blurred, edges worn smooth. A stage, maybe. Heat on his face. The murmur of an audience settling. Or perhaps it was just a rehearsal room. The details refuse to stay put. Faces dissolve before names attach to them. Applause is remembered more as vibration than sound. Sometimes he wonders if those moments were real at all, or if his mind is slowly sanding them down to protect him from contrast too sharp to survive. Being forgotten hurts in a way hunger cannot touch. Hunger is honest. It announces itself. Forgetting is quieter. It seeps in when no one calls, no one checks, no one says his name aloud. It tells him that his absence did not interrupt anything, that the world adjusted easily. That thought settles deep. He does not cry often. Tears feel excessive, like admitting to a weakness he can't afford. Instead, his face tightens. His jaw locks. The ache stays internal, contained, efficient. He has learned how to conserve even his despair. Once, not long ago, he rehearsed introducing himself to a stranger who might help. Just the opening line. Nothing dramatic. But the words felt foreign in his mouth, like a language he no longer had permission to speak. He stopped halfway through, embarrassed by the sound of his own voice in the empty car. Silence felt safer. This is where John Kani now carries his battles. Not against poverty alone, not against age, but against the slow erosion of identity. When pride becomes memory, and memory becomes burden, the mind begins to fold inward. He grows tired of explaining himself to himself, tired of asking why, tired of hoping for recognition that may never come. The greatest fatigue is not physical. It is the weariness of knowing you mattered, and realizing that knowing it changes nothing at all. Age announces itself in him without ceremony, not all at once, in increments, in reminders. It starts when he tries to straighten his back and realizes the motion no longer completes. The spine resists, stiff and unforgiving, as if it has quietly renegotiated its limits overnight. Pain radiates outward, not sharp enough to demand attention, but constant enough to never be ignored. A dull, persistent presence that follows every breath, every shift, every attempt to be comfortable. Comfort is no longer part of the equation. His joints protest when he moves. Knees creak softly, a private sound in the sealed space of the car. Wrists ache when he grips the wheel too long. Fingers stiffen in the cold, taking their time to obey him again. He flexes them slowly, patiently, like a man coaxing cooperation from something that no longer fully belongs to him. Breathing has changed too. He notices it most when he wakes suddenly. Chest tight, air arriving just a beat late. Not panic, just effort. Each inhale feels deliberate now, measured. He pauses between breaths without meaning to, listening to his own lungs as if checking whether they are still willing to keep up. The quiet wheeze that sometimes follows embarrasses him, even though no one hears it. Fatigue clings to him like dampness. It does not lift with rest, because rest is incomplete. Sleep arrives fractured, shallow, interrupted by discomfort and cold. When morning comes, it doesn't feel like renewal. It feels like continuation. Another stretch of hours to endure with a body that no longer resets. His legs feel heavy when he steps out of the car. Not weak, just drained. As if gravity has increased without warning. He stands still for a moment, letting the world settle, waiting for the dizziness to pass. He does this quietly, careful not to draw attention. Aging, he has learned, is easier when it remains unnoticed. This is the body of John Kani now. A body that once carried presence, now carries weight. A body that once projected voice, now conserves breath. There are days when even small tasks feel oversized. Reaching for the bottle, turning the key, adjusting the seat. Each movement asks for negotiation, for pacing, for restraint. He plans motions in advance, unconsciously, the way one plans around pain rather than through it. The cold worsens everything. It sinks into his bones and refuses to leave. Muscles tighten defensively, guarding against a threat that never fully passes. He rubs his arms, his thighs, his hands, trying to generate warmth through friction alone. It helps briefly. Then the chill returns, patient, persistent. What frightens him is not pain, it's fragility, the sense that his body has become something that could fail quietly, without warning, without spectacle. Not dramatically, just gradually. He is aware of himself now in a way he never was before, monitoring, adjusting, conserving. Life reduced to maintenance. He listens to his heart sometimes, counting beats out of habit. Not fear, awareness. The understanding that everything inside him works, but with less margin than it used to. Less forgiveness, less resilience. There is no talk of endings in his thoughts, only of limits, shrinking capacity, narrowing options. A body that still functions, but only if treated carefully, respectfully, cautiously. He exists in that careful space, not collapsing, not recovering, just holding together, breath by breath, ache by ache, in a state so delicate that even standing upright feels like an accomplishment the world will never notice. Night settles without ceremony. The same car, the same stretch of road. Headlights pass in long, unbroken lines, white then red, flowing like something alive that does not need him to continue. Engines hum, horns complain. Somewhere nearby, a laugh escapes through an open window and disappears just as quickly. The city does not pause. It never has. Inside the car, John Kani sits exactly where he was before. Hands resting on his thighs, shoulders slightly rounded, breath quiet, careful, economical. The windshield reflects movement he is no longer part of. Faces blur past, illuminated for a second, then replaced by others just as anonymous. No one slows down, no one turns back. The rhythm outside remains intact, uninterrupted by the stillness inside this parked shell of metal and fabric. He watches without urgency now. Watching costs less than hoping. The seat creaks faintly when he shifts his weight. He adjusts, not for comfort, there is none, but for endurance. The jacket stays wrapped tight. The windows fog again, erasing the outside world in soft, uneven patches. For a moment, it almost feels private, almost contained, almost safe. The road fills, empties, fills again. Traffic lights change color on a schedule that does not account for memory, contribution, or quiet collapse. Somewhere, a stage light switches on. Somewhere else, an audience settles into their seats. Somewhere, a name is spoken for the first time. Here, none of that reaches him. The man in the car does not wave, does not signal, does not ask to be noticed. He has learned that attention is temporary, but absence can be permanent. The car remains parked. The street remains busy. The night deepens. And in that narrow space between movement and stillness, between being remembered and simply being there, a question hangs without sound, without audience, without answer. Because some people do not disappear from the world. They only disappear from the memory of those who once applauded them.